horses, flaming red canyons, eagle hunting, nomads, mountains, and lakes, mysterious traditions, multi-day treks, and a life that is so different from what most of us are used to, you might just feel catapulted back in time. Travel is the only thing you can buy that makes you richer. One of my favorite travel quotes, and one that unfortunately in times of mass tourism to resort destinations has lost a bit of its truth, I feel sometimes. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand the security and hassle-free approach of those offerings. But for me, traveling, and even more so living in different countries, has a lot to do with diving deep into the culture, understanding my fellow human beings, and learning a lot about the different places on this planet. Finding common ground in a kind gesture and a smile. Being struck speechless by the beauty of this planet. And being humbled by seeing how other people live and what they value, and that at the core of it, we're not that different from each other. And this is something that you can't find in a resort vacation. Instead, you can find it in countries off the beaten track. Countries that might take you a while to find on the map. Countries like Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is the perfect destination for backpackers and adventure travelers. But what about digital nomads? Is it possible to work and travel here? Does the country offer reliable digital nomad infrastructure? The government seems to think so, as it has just launched a test digital nomad visa, offered to a couple of countries in a bid to attract more tourists and digital nomads. So in this video, let me introduce the country to you. Let's look at its offerings for digital nomads, its digital nomad infrastructure, cost of living, where to live, and what to do, as well as its history to understand its people and culture a bit better. And last but not least, of course, the visa options. So without further ado, let's look at the Digital Nomad Guide to Kyrgyzstan. Timestamps, as usual, are down below if you want to jump back and forward or need help with travel resources. Kyrgyzstan is a small country in Central Asia, bordering China, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Its inhabitants are called Kyrgyz, and the language spoken is also called Kyrgyz. Russian, which was taught in school during the time Kyrgyzstan was part of the Soviet Union, is still the second official language. 90% of the country's territory are dominated by the beautiful landscape of the Tian Shan mountain range. Dramatic mountains, lush valleys, crystal blue mountain lakes, and deep gorges. The Kyrgyz have a very strong nomadic heritage that is still being lived today. 65% of the population still live in rural areas, and many are at least semi-nomadic, moving through this breathtaking landscape during the warmer season, living in cozy tents, yurts that they take with them. So this might not be a destination if you're looking for hip, bustling metropoles and shopping malls. It is, however, an epic destination if you want to dive deep into beautiful, majestic nature, experience thousands of years of deeply rooted culture and tradition, spend time with warm, authentic people, and learn their way of life. Don't be surprised if people invite you into their homes, offer you tea, often sweetened with jam, and want to show you around. This is a very hospitable culture, and the Kyrgyz are happy to show their way of life to those who visit them and are interested in it. Outside of the capital of Bishkek, people will not be able to speak English. In Bishkek, the younger generation will, and in the tourist industry, at least those who work with tourism will be able to speak just enough to, get the basics done. So your best bet is to learn and to recognize some words in the Cyrillic language to help you get around better. That said, the people are very friendly and helpful. Tourism is still very underdeveloped, which makes the country a hot secret before it gets discovered and overrun. But that also means tourism infrastructure and offerings do not exist on a scale you might expect. But there are a lot of local, small guided tours that will be more authentic for it. The weather can range from 40 degrees Celsius plus in summer to minus 15 in winter. When it comes to money, cash is king in Kyrgyzstan, and the currency is the Kyrgyzstani som. $1 currently equals 87.42 som. Let's take a look at Kyrgyzstan's history so you understand a bit where these people come from, what they value, what struggles they've overcome, and therefore hopefully understand them better. Kyrgyz people trace back to Turkic nomads, who came to the region that now is Kyrgyzstan centuries ago. While traces of human settlements found in the Tian Shan mountain range date back 200,000 to 300,000 years, the first written records of a civilization in the area appeared in Chinese documents around 2000 BC. Some of the bigger pain points in Kyrgyz history are the invasions by the Mongols in the 13th century, the Kalmyks, which are a Mongolic ethnic group living mainly in Russia, the Manchus, who are a Tungusic East Asian ethnic group, and the Uzbeks. In 1876, Kyrgyzstan became part of the Russian Empire, remaining in the Soviet Union as the Kyrgyz Soviet Socialist Republic after the Russian Revolution. In 1990, pro-independence candidate Askar Akayev was elected, and on the 31st of August 1991, Kyrgyzstan declared independence from the Soviet Union. This and the collapse of the Soviet Union and subsequent birth of so many new states led to some very interesting land borders, some of which are still fought over today, as you will see in a little bit. The declaration of independence was preceded by ethnic tensions between Uzbeks and Kyrgyz in the area of Osh on June 4, 1990. According to unofficial sources, up to 1,000 people died during the unrest. Osh is the country's second largest city, and Uzbeks are the largest ethnic group here. Conflicts would flare up even worse a decade later. The young country has struggled with political unrest while trying to find its way and creating a national, possibly oftentimes nationalist identity. In 2010, Kyrgyzstan dealt, not for the first time, with power cutoffs and blackouts during the harsh winter, while the electricity prices were rising. Underlying ethnic tensions in the south of Kyrgyzstan, the border region with Uzbekistan and to some extent also Tajikistan, remember the border mess we looked at, kept growing. Tension in the south increased between ethnic Uzbeks and Kyrgyz, with the violence starting in Jalalabad on May 19th and tragically escalating in Osh on June 10, 2010, when Uzbeks and Kyrgyz ethnics attacked each other. To this day, accounts on what happened, who started it, differ on depending who is asked. Both ethnic Uzbeks and Kyrgyz fell victim to violence, but it would seem that the majority of victims were Uzbek. The violence lasted for 4 days. More than 400 people were killed, many of them burned in their houses, and nearly 2,000 houses destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people, mostly ethnic Uzbeks, were displaced, fleeing the violence. Another issue that still remains unsolved to this day is the contested border with Tajikistan. Over 400 kilometers of that border are contested, with Tajikistan using reference maps from the 1920s and Kyrgyzstan from the 1950s. Last year, one of these skirmishes turned into an all-out military affair between the two countries. Things have calmed down now, and the region is relatively safe to travel, particularly for tourists that are not involved in the ethnic disputes. However, what I'm trying to say here is that if you want to travel the area, particularly the border area, it makes sense to just quickly check on the situation before you go, to be on the safe side. Moving on to more digital nomad specific topics. The important question, is Kyrgyzstan a country that is suitable for the digital nomad lifestyle? Does Kyrgyzstan have the infrastructure for you to work and travel there? And as usual, first of all, internet. And the answer that might surprise you is yes. High-speed Wi-Fi is available in all the big cities in Kyrgyzstan. This means you can settle in one of the bigger cities and get your work done and use this as a base for your adventures around the country. You will also be able to find Wi-Fi in hostels, restaurants, cafes, and the like, though it might be a bit slower. And, as always, buying a SIM card should be one of the first tasks when moving to a new country. That way you can use a personal hotspot, which also comes handy when facing the occasional power outage. Outside of the bigger cities, this is a very different story though. the rural nature and nomadic culture of Kyrgyzstan might give it away. Rural coverage is very basic to non-existent. Only 25% of the country has coverage, so make sure you have everything you need offline when heading out of the cities. When it comes to infrastructure, Bishkek is the most likely airport for travelers to fly into, but the country has another airport in Osh. Travel within the country happens mostly over land, and the most common mode of transportation are either buses or minibuses, which are inexpensive and connect even smaller villages. The beauty of these is that you can basically just hail them down from the side of the road. They have a beginning and an end stop, and the driver will stop anywhere in between as requested. If you are a confident driver, you could also rent a car and explore the country on your own. But be aware that the road conditions vary, and be prepared for livestock on the road in rural areas. A tip that I've read to avoid corrupt police officers is to ask for a receipt when being fined. To play it safe, and if you are worried about the language barrier of using a bus, you can take part in an organized tour or hire a private guide. I will link some tours in the description. Another alternative is to order a taxi. In Bishkek, you can order them via the Yandex Go app, like Uber. Accommodation. A great way to really get to know people and culture is via a homestay. This is staying in a family's home and really experiencing their life. This brings us to another very exciting accommodation opportunity in Kyrgyzstan. Yurt camps, as in staying in one of the tents the nomads use to this day while moving around. Talk about the cultural experience of a lifetime. You will be able to find several yurt camps online where you can book accommodation and get a glimpse into Kyrgyz life and culture, surrounded by the rugged beauty of the wilderness. Aside from that, you will of course find more accommodation options. Be aware that some holders of e-visas are required to register within 48 hours of arriving in Kyrgyzstan. Check your country's visa policy to be sure. If you stay in a hotel or a hostel, they should be able to do this for you. If you are renting an Airbnb, you need to take care of this yourself by heading to the Public Security Bureau. Let's talk about cost of living in Kyrgyzstan. My numbers, as always, are from Numbeo, and I have translated them to US dollars to make the transfer to your own currency easier. A family of 4 is estimated to spend $1,392 per month without rent. A single person is estimated to spend $392 a month without rent. So let's break this down a little, shall we? An inexpensive meal in a restaurant will cost you approximately $5.15. A cappuccino will cost you $1.68. Monthly transport will cost you $6.28. Taxi starting costs will cost you 80 cents. And 1 kilometer will cost you 22 cents. Basic utilities will cost you $36 a month. And internet $12.64. A 1-bedroom apartment in the city center should cost you $362. And outside the city center, $223. Where to stay? For a home base, your best option is the capital, Bishkek. Bishkek is the biggest city in a country that still predominantly lives a rural, if not even a nomadic lifestyle, which makes Bishkek a very small capital, home to a little under 1 million people. But then again, Kyrgyzstan really isn't for you if you are into big metropoles and city life. If you can imagine nothing better than spending time in truly majestic nature, however, then you might just have found paradise. And in that case, Bishkek is a good base for the life-changing adventures to come. It is also a good location from which to travel to the neighboring countries by train and explore those. And don't get me wrong, even though it is small, it has all the digital nomad infrastructure you will need for your lifestyle. Relatively fast internet, several co-working spaces to get work done and make new connections. Since the city is so small, it is quite walkable, and your easiest bet is to stay in the center, where you are close to everything you might need. It even has a bustling nightlife, though you might have to ask for tips either in your hostel or hotel or in a Facebook group to be pointed into the right direction. Osh Bazaar is a popular market amongst both locals and tourists and a great place to buy some authentic souvenirs, immerse yourself in the culture, and try the traditional Kyrgyz cuisine. For another truly authentic experience, visit a bathhouse, a banya. This basically is a steam sauna. Sitting in the hot, steam-filled room and listening to the rhythmic murmurs of the locals conversing has an almost hypnotic appeal. Don't be alarmed if they start hitting each other with leafy birch twigs. This is a common practice in many countries with an avid sauna tradition. I first experienced it in Finland. It is meant to remove dirt and improve circulation. One of the most impressive monuments in the city must unquestionably be the Victory Monument. Its arched form represents a yurt, the traditional Kyrgyz tent, and in its center is a mother, waiting for her son and husband to return from war. But while Bishkek is a nice little city, Kyrgyzstan's magic is in nature, and from Bishkek you have it right at your doorstep. Archa National Park, for example, is only a 45-minute car drive away and a great location for some day trips, particularly if you are into hiking or rock climbing. Another popular landmark is the 11th century Burana Tower, which is located about 80 kilometers from Bishkek and close to the city of Tokmok. It is one of the oldest architectural constructions in Central Asia. The tower, which originally was much higher, is actually a minaret. It has probably been damaged during some of the bigger earthquakes in the area and is surrounded by gravestones and the ruins of mausoleums and a castle, only remnants left of a vibrant city that used to stand here, the ancient city of Balasagun. For a water spot destination of a very special kind, head to Issyk Kul. Make sure to plan for a couple of days here, since there is a lot to experience and do. Issyk Kul, which translates to warm lake, is the world's second largest saline lake after the Caspian Sea. This is where the name comes from. Due to the salt amount in the water and hot springs feeding it, it never freezes. At an altitude of 1,607 meters, 5,272 feet, it is also the second highest mountain lake in the world, and it reaches 668 meters in depth at its deepest point, making it the 7th deepest lake in the world, a place full of superlatives. Issyk Kul is a popular vacation destination for locals and a fantastic base for hiking trips in the area, which are just breathtaking. There are also quite a few yurt camps in the vicinity. As I mentioned, definitely another must-do during your stay in Kyrgyzstan. From here, one trip you should not miss is the Fairy Tale Canyon, or Skatska as it is called, which is Russian for fairy tale. The Fairy Tale Canyon is located on the south side of Issyk Kul Lake and is a sight to behold. It is as if you had accidentally stumbled into a different dimension and landed on a different planet. A stark contrast to the lush green mountains and valleys of the country, Fairy Tale Canyon surprises and enthralls you with barren red rock formations reaching for the blue skies overhead. Another hiking opportunity in the region is the waterfalls in the Barskoon Valley. By the way, Barskoon translates to Tears of the Snow Leopard. Isn't that beautiful? This experience is in stark contrast to the Fairy Tale Canyon. Hiking through thick, green forest and majestic mountain peaks, you will make your way past 3 major waterfalls, the second one being the actual Barskoon Waterfall. Third waterfall is a bit harder to reach, and the trip is only recommended if you are sure-footed and in good condition, due to some loose gravel and rocks on the steep path. But if you make your way up past the third and last waterfall, you can reach a plateau, from which you will be rewarded with a magnificent view over the valley, Issyk Kul and the surrounding mountains. The entrance to the path leading to the waterfall is quite easy to find. It is marked by 2 statues of Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, who recovered from his mission in a sanatorium in the area. And to experience the incredible diversity of Kyrgyz nature, head to Arabel Plateau. a highland area located at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters above sea level. Because of the altitude, there's very little vegetation growing here, and the temperatures are very low year-round. So you are left with a stunning mountain tundra filled with small streams and lakes. Surrounding this hidden valley, you can admire the snow-capped peaks of the mountains. The next popular base for adventures in the area is the town of Karakol, the fourth biggest town in Kyrgyzstan. Here you will find some tourism infrastructure, such as guided tours for the area, as well as accommodation. And while many come here to start their treks into the Tian Shan mountain range, or participate in some of the mentioned activities, the city itself is actually famous for its multicultural food experiences. To really learn about people and culture, you can, for example, visit a Dungan village. Dungan people are Muslim people of Hui origin in China. A little outside of Karakol, they invite visitors into their village and welcome them into their homes to cook a traditional meal and teach about their lifestyle and culture. Make sure you come hungry. To relax after your outdoor adventures, there are some hot springs in the region you can enjoy, with Aksu Kench hot spring being the closest to Karakol. The Aksu district has another beautiful stop you can visit, the little village of Yirgalan. It doesn't get more authentic than this little mountain village. Horses and other livestock roam the pastures. Nomadic shepherds have set up their yurt camps. Dogs run through the village and the small houses, and clear streams make their way down the mountains and through the valley. This might not be a tourist hub, but it is a beautiful, authentic stop where you can stay in a guest house before you trek into the wild, magical nature of the area. By the way, if you come during winter time, Karakol also offers excellent and affordable skiing opportunities. An experience that is almost a must in Kyrgyzstan is probably to participate in a horse trek. It is so deeply ingrained in Kyrgyz culture. If you are inexperienced about horses, be open about it when inquiring. There are shorter and easier treks. Your backside will probably thank you for it. One place you could go on such a horse trek is Issyk Kul, which is another one of the country's most popular destinations. The other popular place for this activity is the aforementioned Yirgalan. Issyk Kul is absolutely breathtaking. If you have a picture of nomadic wilderness in Kyrgyzstan in your mind, it probably looks a lot like this. It is another high alpine lake situated at an altitude of 3,016 meters and the second largest lake in Kyrgyzstan, with an area of 270 square kilometers. It is surrounded by the Tian Shan mountains and is a famous summer pasture for the Kyrgyz nomads. Let your eyes wander over the treeless, lush green pastures dotted with livestock and yurts, and feel like you are transported into another century. Aside from horseback riding and hiking, you can of course also stay in a yurt and even learn the craft of yurt making. What an unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Or attend a national horse game called Kokboru or Dead Goat Polo. The picture that name evokes before your inner eye is probably close to reality too. Kokboru is a century-old game and one of the most famous and popular ones in Central Asia. Basically, two competing teams ride on horseback and the players are trying to maneuver what used to be a goat's carcass, but luckily these days has been replaced by a mold into the opponent's goal, which equals a score. Since we are on the topic of local sports, there is one more you need to witness: eagle hunting. This tradition goes back to the times of the Mongols in the 12th and 13th century and is a sight to behold, though unfortunately a dying art. The nomadic people of the region used to train birds of prey, especially the golden eagle, to hunt for them. Particularly during winter times, this presented a very important food resource. Before moving on to the digital nomad visa options for Kyrgyzstan, let's look at the second largest city in Kyrgyzstan, Osh. Osh used to be a major outpost of the Silk Road back in the day. It is often referred to as the capital of the south and the oldest city in Kyrgyzstan. As I mentioned in the history bit, it has seen some very violent and turbulent times a decade ago. Right now the situation is calm here. Osh is a fantastic base for some adventures in the region, and it has reliable internet to get some work done in between diving into the wilderness. Popular treks from Osh include the Alai Mountains. Tours offered vary in length and difficulty and take you deep into the undiscovered wilderness of these majestic mountains. Through green valleys and past impressive glaciers, turquoise lakes and rugged peaks. It is also a starting point for people interested in traveling the Pamir Highway. This millennia-old mountain highway traverses the Pamir Mountains through Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. It is of enormous historical importance to the entire area, since it is the only continuous route through the difficult terrain of the mountains and is the main supply route to Tajikistan's Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region. Driving even only parts of it is bound to be the experience of a lifetime, with amazing hiking spots and cultural experiences in small mountain villages along the way. Alright then, let's take a look at the visa options. Kyrgyzstan is the most liberal country in Central Asia when it comes to visas. Over 42 countries can get a tourist visa on arrival for between 30 and 90 days. All other passport holders need to apply for a visa, which is easily done through the e-visa system and costs about $60. Unfortunately, for some passport holders, if you need to apply for a visa, this means you will need a letter of invitation from somebody inside the country, which makes the whole visa getting process a lot more complicated. If you wish to stay longer than the time on your tourist visa, a border run might be a way to achieve that. Check out my recent video explaining on what a border run is and what the benefits and problems with them are. It would seem that Kyrgyzstan is also considering the implementation of a digital nomad visa, which they are currently test running with citizens of specific countries: Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Armenia and Moldova. According to the blogger Andy Stowe, citizens from this country can apply for a digital nomad visa to stay in the country for 6 months with the possibility to prolong it for another 6 months. They will get a personal identification number with the visa, which will allow them to open bank accounts, sign rental agreements and more, things that many digital nomads struggle with when traveling on a tourist visa. Once the trial period is over in December 2023, the government will reconsider and see if this visa will be implemented for more countries. So until then, if you're interested in Central Asia, why not check out my recent video about Armenia up here, or my coming video about North Macedonia. With that said, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for today. Keep exploring. I'll see you here on the next one. Bye bye.